From Fox News, Rachel Maddow emotionally suggests doomsday scenario where Trump could stay in power for life if elected. I don't know who wrote the Alexander Hall for Fox News. This is clearly a factually incorrect piece. The headline should be written as Rachel Maddow emotionally suggests wonderful scenario where Trump could stay in power for life if elected. I'm kidding, by the way.
I like the use of the word emotionally.
Right. Well, let me. The clip's only a minute long. We've got it from Colin Rugg, and I want to play it for you. We were originally going to lead with this one, but then we decided to go with the Hunter Biden stuff. But this is amazing, amazing stuff. Take a listen to this unhinged individual who needs very serious help.
If you think about the court as the Supreme Court of the United States and a rational actor and a decent one, that was a reasonable supposition, and it just turns out they're not that. Incremental bit of progress here. The important question here is not whether the Supreme Court is going to decide that Donald Trump and all presidents are immune from prosecution for things crimes they committed while they were president.
That's actually wrong. I just want to pause real quick. It's quite literally the most important thing. The most important is, will future presidents be criminally charged while they're in office or after office for things they did as president in office? That seriously matters. But continue, lady.
I mean, it would be fully insane for them to actually side with Trump here, right? The conclusion that we can arrive at now based on what they have done without having to wait for the ruling is that they are ensuring that Trump will not face trial. And when they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the president.
God, look how much he's blinking.
And if he is voted out in 2028, he cannot leave office, and he is willing to he is welcome to commit any crimes he wants to, as long as he is still president, in order to ignore the result of that election and stay in power for life, because otherwise he is going to go to prison when he gets out.
Okay, I fully accept the transformation of the American Republic into the American Empire and 200 years of prosperity. Tomorrow morning on the Culture War, we'll be talking about the Roman Empire. I'm kidding, by the way. But she's completely nuts. First of all, it would be insane if the Supreme Court rules there is no immunity. The idea that a president could do something in his official capacity and then afterwards be prosecuted by his political rivals for what he did as president is insane. And the fact that Joe Biden is doing it right now is nuts. She doesn't understand what the argument is. The argument is, what she's saying makes literally no sense. She's like, he would stay in office forever. Well, he'd get impeached and convicted. They'd physically remove him. What is this?
No, the Supreme Court is ruling on our concept of term limits for presidents. Everything gets changed right by the Supreme Court.
So she's either very unwell, cognitively deficient, or intentionally lying. Because the argument from Trump's lawyers, which I believe is the correct and sound argument, is that if a president is to be criminally charged, he must be impeached in Congress and convicted in the Senate first. And this pertains only to official acts. Now, Will Chamberlain brings up a really great point in this. So he says some further analysis of the Supreme Court's decision to grant cert of on the presidential immunity question. Bluff, I don't know if that's a reference to a person. I'm not a lawyer, so I think the Supreme Court is likely to reverse the D.C. Circuit. And as a result, Trump is very unlikely to face trial in D.C. or Florida before the election. Here's the question presented. Whether and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office? He says, here's an important thing to understand. The court is not going to resolve the question of whether President Trump's conduct did, in fact, involve official acts. So unless the Supreme Court agrees with the D.C. Circuit completely and holds that there is no such immunity for former presidents, there won't be a trial before the election. He says, I think the likely outcome will be the Supreme Court will hold that there is some amount of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. It won't be absolute, as it is for civil litigation, because the founders certainly contemplated that a president might be impeached and convicted by the Senate and then subsequently face criminal prosecution. But for the Supreme Court to find that no such immunity exists, it would have to repudiate much of the logic and force of Nixon v. Fitzgerald, where the court held that former presidents have absolute immunity from civil lawsuits arising out of official acts. The most likely scenario, the court agrees with Trump's legal position, reverse the D.C. Circuit, hold the former presidents are immune from criminal prosecution for official acts, save those that lead to an impeachment and a conviction in the Senate. Then they will likely remand back to D.C. to the district court for further proceedings, which would be in some sort of hearing analysis of whether Trump's conduct was in fact involving official acts. And then those proceedings would likely be subject to appeal. It would likely go back to the DC Circuit, then to the Supreme Court. This would take months. So long story short, this trial's never going to happen. Rachel Maddow's completely wrong. She has no idea what the hell she's talking about. It's actually amazing how stupid she is. Or it could just be that she's lying. Or both.
Yeah, I think, the key part here is official acts, obviously, right? And the president being the chief magistrate, when he acts within the scope of his duties, of course, he's immune from prosecution. And I would argue that, this official act investigating 2020 election fraud certainly falls within the president's official presidential duties, right? He has a duty to ensure that our elections are secure and to, make sure that everyone's vote is accurately being counted.
I'd be a little more aggressive in the language. I'd say it's his obligation to do so. If the chief of our federal law enforcement said, there's a lot of accusations of crime going on, but hey, look, I don't want to be involved. That being said, there is still a conflict of interest in that it was an election he was involved in. But still, that's it.
Yeah.
Typically, if you've got like a sheriff and he's accused of a crime,
and
then they're like,
have immunity.
Well, no, if a sheriff was accused of a crime, you would need a higher form of law enforcement to come in. You'd get state level, you'd get federal intervention, something to say, okay, we need some kind of investigation of this individual. For Donald Trump, you need the federal government to investigate accusations of wrongdoing, unconstitutionality, et cetera, but there is no higher law enforcement. So it should go to the checks and balances of Congress. Mm-hmm. And then after Congress acquitted Donald Trump saying he didn't do it, it should have ended there.
Right. And again, this concept of immunity is, well, it's not like specifically mentioned by name in the Constitution. It's a pretty well-established aspect of our legal system. Police officers have qualified immunity. States have it. The federal government argues it in cases frequently. And it's something that presidents have as well. So this isn't some like crazy conspiracy theory that they think we're pushing to instill Trump as like a king. This is a well-established aspect of our legal system.
It's really simple. They know that if Donald Trump isn't arrested, or he's been arrested, if he isn't convicted, he wins. And they say it. Let me pull this thing up from Chris Hayes. See if I can find it. Because this was let's see, MSNBC. This one was I talked about early in the morning. The fix is in. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. Here we go. Watch this. I'll play only a little bit of it. But this guy, he's really something special. What's going on? Do I got to refresh it? Here we go.
I'm Chris Hayes. Today, the right-wing dominated Supreme Court gave Donald Trump a gift. The biggest possible gift anyone could give him. The biggest possible gift they have given him yet. Remember, Donald Trump, of course, participated in a violent coup to overthrow democracy. The first.
Can I just pause and say he did not? And we relitigate January 6th over and over again, but Trump was still speaking at the ellipse when people stormed the barricades at the Capitol. He was not there. He did not tell them to do it. In fact, he did not know they did it till sometime after.
To set himself squarely against the constitutional order in history. He rallied his supporters to storm the Capitol and steal an election he lost. And he was indicted by our Justice Department, representative of us, the people, on 4 federal felony counts by a grand jury for his role in that insurrection.
That he was already acquitted for. And so I think some kind of double jeopardy should apply, but carry on, sir.
Well, today, in a single-page order released at 5 o'clock, the court agreed to consider Trump's manifestly weak claim that he is immune from prosecution for the January 6th insurrection because he was acting in some senses in his official capacity as president. But the order itself is not the story here. It's the timing. It all comes back to the timing. Let's remember. The court case, the trial of Donald Trump over his effort to subvert the constitutional republic, was originally set to begin days from now in March. All that is on hold because the Supreme Court wants to hear oral arguments for Trump's immunity claims. Ready for this? 7 weeks from now. April 22nd, 2024, making it a real possibility, a likelihood, in fact, that Donald Trump will not face a trial for the crime of attempting to overthrow the American republic, will not face a jury of his peers until after the next election in which he is the likely Republican candidate.
Boom.
They're really saying the
I want to be
quiet part
crystal
out
clear
loud.
here about the import and
Like
significance.
the whole point, as people on our side have been saying for a long time, the whole point of these prosecutions is to prevent Trump from being able to run, being able to be elected. They're just saying that outright here.
Chris
Like
Hayes is like, they are stopping our plan.
Right, they're messing up our timing.
This.
And also, I think what they're really trying to do, the commonality between this and the Rachel Maddow clip, they're trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court too, I think, because that's the one institution that the left doesn't control. That is a conservative stronghold. Mm-hmm. So I think they're really trying to delegitimize it in the minds of the American people and stigmatize it so that, I don't know, eventually maybe people won't listen to it anymore.
Or question it. They'll feel like this is
They'll think
always...
it's partisan.
Right, for sure. I mean, the thing is, for Rachel Maddow and for Chris Hayes, fear sells. Like, if they can whip up enough of a frenzy, they will make more money this way. Their clips will go more viral, and they'll get more people to say, well, what is Chris Hayes going to happen next? And they won't actually read anything or do any research on their own. And I think that's what bothers me the most, which is that this, like, effective propaganda where they are completely spinning a narrative that is not true. I mean, he's saying, you know, Trump did this, that he's never been convicted of that. There's not even.
He's been acquitted of it.
He's been acquitted of it. Like, we're not even throwing around the words alleged, reportedly, some believe. Like, it is absolutely this happened the way we said it happened, and the Supreme Court is doing this to terrorize all of you. I think that that's gross, especially because, again, they make money off of this.
I love how they're like, Trump is evil and wants to be a dictator, and the Supreme Court also evil, and they want Trump to be a dictator.
And House Republicans also evil.
All evil. And that guy next door who likes Trump, he is also evil. They're all evil, and they're all out to get you. Everyone is in on it. It's one big conspiracy because they love Donald Trump. That proves it. There you go.
If you don't know, Chris Hayes is like mimicking Rachel Maddow, who's mimicking Keith Olbermann. And Stephen Colbert kind of mimics it. They talk like they got this weird sycophantic way of talking. And the echoing in these clips of Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes is like nails on chalkboard. This is supposed to be MSNBC, like they got money. Why do the mics suck so bad? It's evidence that this industry is gone. It is just completely failed. It's a dude in a small room with a green screen. Like this is what. And Rachel's in the same situation. Like you can hear the echo in her small little room that she's in.
You can actually, I think you can see on the ground how small the room is. It's kind of wild if you think about it.
Yep, and it makes total sense.
I mean, our room is bigger than his room. It looks like.
Yeah, this is a legitimate.
This
set.
room is what was it? 15 by 36
with
or
good
35?
Microphones. You're not getting the room echo.
New room's even bigger. New room is 25 by 50, I think.
So these people, this whole industry is flailing right now, is screaming for clicks.
No, I think the new room might be 25 by 40 because there's stairs.
Yeah.
No, the stairs aren't 10 feet though, so it's got to be like 45. Big room. It's kind of too big. Too big. They say
too big to fail.
Tables in the middle of the room, and there's like a lot of space, but it's going to affect how the backdrop looks and everything. So I think it'll be all right. Whatever.
I think it'll be cool.
But it is kind of wild to think of as we watch these lunatics struggle and fail and lose money and go out of business. I had a friend reach out to me today, like shocked Vice is no more, and I'm like, yeah, you're not going to contract with them anytime soon because they don't exist anymore. But you can always text me, I guess.
Yeah, when you see a company like MSNBC has their top talent with room tone echo, there's something going wrong with that company. I would not get involved with that company right now.
Shout out to You, Me, and the Movies who chatted the irony of the echo chamber.
Yeah, literally.
Rough times all around.
Yeah.
They're both literally in echo chambers. That's so funny.
I think it's disturbing, but the thing is, it's going to affect like not our generation necessarily, people who are online or have something to counterbalance this. It's going to affect people who are not particularly politically engaged and older people who trust media like this, who say, but people on TV are trained and they're ethical and they wouldn't make stuff up. But actually, it's a hysterical screaming match where they're all trying to say the most dramatic thing to whip up the most amount of fear out of the voters. Like, that's not a healthy way to treat the election, and yet they're going to continue doing it because they know this is their last chance to be relevant.
The TV, this monopoly on this technology, the TV. People watch like ABC, NBC. They watch their TV, and it's still controlled by people that are force feeding garbage, like Chris Hayes spaz out or Rachel Maddow panic. Like that's not good that's not the stuff that people should be watching as children or like feeding their brains with. But this monopoly constriction of force feeding it to people is like why they go crazy from Chris Hayes' vapid, incessant narcissistic rant into the void.
It's okay. I love this. CNN reported they were the youngest cable network. And in 2022, the average age of a CNN viewer was 67. But to be fair,
rough all around.
Fox News is 68. And MSNBC is 71.
So that's accurate reporting. It's just not great.
No, it's not accurate reporting. What do you Oh, you mean on the youngest network?
Yeah, they are the youngest,
It was a press release. I didn't consider it reporting.
Yeah.
But yes, they are the youngest at 67. And MSNBC, 71 years old. These are people who are half checked out. I'm not trying to be a dick, but they're just like, they're hanging out, they're retired, they're just passively listening, and they chilling.
Yeah, they're not the people that would be on the front lines.
Damn, that's
in some
wild,
sort of
dude.
conflict.
The average age of Timcast IRL is like 34. It's like 33 or 34.
I mean, the biggest
Crazy.
thing you have to contrast this with is data based on what age groups are most likely to participate in elections, right? Because whoever is the most active, whatever the age block is that's the most active, that's actually who you want to target with these kind of hysterical messages. So if it holds true, retirees have time on their hands, they're going to the polls, like it's not a terrible, audience to have control of. But theoretically, younger audiences are going to bear these messages and feel the effects of culture longer. So it's just, again, dividing the effects of what's going to happen to our country and who is actively doing something about it. Like, hopefully, all the 30-year-olds who listen to this program are always planning to vote or participate in state, local, federal elections, because that's how you make an impact. If you are not doing that, then you are letting your grandparents or your parents or whoever who are listening to CNN, MSNBC, they're leading the ways in the polls.
And hopefully they have chickens.
I was thinking earlier about
But that's just a life goal,
Right. How awesome it would be if we had a young, hot couple as the president and the first lady or the first man or whatever. Like I mean, like Vivek, I'm not saying Vivek's some hot guy, but like young people like his age, potentially in their 30s, like attractive people with young kids that are like so keyed into what's really going on, and like, could they even survive?
But that's what people liked about JFK, right? That he was young. I mean, his wife had a baby while they were in the White House. I'm not getting the timeline right. The baby didn't survive, but like they had young children. He was extremely young for that age. He went up against Nixon. I mean, that was the whole effect of the radio versus TV. He looked more vibrant. I think people would like to see young candidates. It's just right now we're not. I think it's going to be Trump this year. I don't think a young person could have beat Trump. We kind of have to max out the Trumpness for the Republican Party to move on. And to be fair, so does the Democrat Party, because they're about to put up the oldest president in the nation's history before we move on to this younger generation.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.